Hello and welcome to the All About Pigeons podcast. We have a very special episode for you today, so stick around. Today we have with us Bonnie Lewis. Bonnie has been a fancier for over 40 years. She's judged shows. She currently has 25 different breeds and 8 lofts that she's taking care of. And today we're going to talk about some old-timey hacks. So Bonnie, thanks for coming on and talking with us.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Always happy to share some of the information that I've garnered over the years. We're not going to be able to get the African gray to be quiet. There's just no way she's not going to be quiet.
That's not a beep, and that's her African gray parrot in the background wanting to chime in a little bit.
That's Junie Bug, and she's real happy to see me. You know, even if I cover her up, she'll still talk. We're stuck with her, unfortunately.
No worries. She'll just be a part of the show.
There we go.
Old-timey pigeon hacks right here. So there's so many different things that we can go through on this. Got a lot of experience with pigeons over the years, and you've probably even seen products come and go and stuff like this. Let's jump into what I would consider to be one of the most problematic ones. You probably see this too, Bonnie, like on Facebook. People always take pictures of droppings, oh, my pigeon's got these droppings. What do I do? And then starts this long list of just burning that bird out through all these different medications. What would be some of like the first steps that you would take when it comes to a bird that's getting watery droppings or something issue with their droppings?
Very, very first thing I would do is I would isolate that bird. If you just have one bird sick, there's no point in treating the entire loft because you're going to end up with a compromised immune system. If it's not broke, don't fix it. You take the bird that is sick, put it aside in quarantine, and you treat it. Keep an eye on everybody else, because it could be something else. But isolate that bird and treat that bird and that bird only. Because if not, you're going to make a bunch of treatment-resistant birds. And then you will constantly have to keep antibiotics or something in their water just to keep them alive and healthy. That would be the very first thing. What I do is generally and I vaccinate my birds for everything. If there's a vaccine for it, they've gotten it. That's just what I do. I'm not really concerned about it being paratyphoid or anything along those lines, although not saying that vaccines are 100% because they're not, but generally, if I see a bird that's like that, I swear by, and honestly, I do, these Tony Treasure tablets. And I was very leery about them when I first came across them because basically the way they describe themselves, I would say snake oil, because they cure everything from spitting seeds to infertility, and they just claim so many things. But you know what? They actually do work. There's no ingredient list on them. They're dirt cheap. I get them for 25 cents a piece here from my local pigeon store. And they literally, in 5 days' time, will cure just about anything that needs to be cured. Basically, if 5 days of treatment doesn't take care of it, well, then maybe it's time to say bye-bye to the bird. It honestly does work. And all the other stuff that you can buy out there is expensive. You have to treat the entire loft when the entire loft doesn't need treated. And a lot of the stuff, if you put the water to it first rather than adding it to the water, then it foams up and it makes a mess and it doesn't mix right. And if your water is exposed to the sunlight, it'll turn a funky purple color and then it's no good. Where these are like little tiny green pills, shove it down their throat, blow in their face to make them swallow. And that's how you make a pigeon swallow. Stick the pill in their mouth, blow in their face. If they blink, they've swallowed. Real simple. A blinking pigeon is swallowing. That's how you get the pill down them. Just that simple.
That's good to know. Honestly, and this is probably just my own laziness or, not wanting to deal with it. But there's been times when I've looked up different supplements and I've basically been like, hey, if I can't add it to the food or water, i.e., like if it's in a pill form, I'm just not even going to try it because that just seems like it'd be such a pain in the butt to try to give a pigeon a pill. You hold them and open up their beak and jam it down there, blow in their face, and that's that, huh?
Yep. You open up their beak, stick it towards the back of their throat, make sure their beak is shut, and then blow in their face. And the minute they blink, if you look, that pill's gone. They swallowed it, and they won't hork it back up. Once they blink, it's down the hatch. Done deal.
So is the Tony's Treasures kind of what you start with when it comes to you got a sick bird?
Yep, because that's generally all I need if it's some type of a bacterial infection, if it's some type of a gastrointestinal or respiratory. That's my go-to. I don't even head out into my loft I take the bottle with me because if somebody's not looking right or somebody's looking a little droopy, I'll grab them up. I'll just treat them for a day or two, quarantine them, treat them for a day or two, just to make certain they're not coming down with something. But the biggest thing is literally if somebody is not looking good or sick, get them away from the rest of your birds, quarantine them, which means you touch them and you handle them and you feed them and water them last. You don't mess with them, then go into your other loft because then you've just taken it with you if there is something going on. That's generally my go-to, and that seems to take care of probably, I would say, 85 to 90% of any problems that I have had.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, of course, if you have a virus, it's not going to take care of a virus. That's why, humans don't take antibiotics for a virus because it simply has to run its course. You can treat things that the virus causes, like secondary infections, but the virus just has to run its course.
So Bonnie lives in, I joke and call it Pigeonville, USA, just because she's by one of the largest, or maybe the largest racing pigeon club. Is it the largest? The Gulf Coast?
Yeah, Gulf Coast is, I believe it is the largest pigeon racing club in the United States. It's my understanding.
And that's right next door to her. And so there's all these pigeon stores all around. But I know that like Jed's, Foy's, you can get this Tony's Treasure at some of, regular pigeon online suppliers. And you could probably even just Google it and find something.
I've got two places within like a mile of me that sell it. I'm fortunate that I have 3 good pigeon stores within probably 2 or 3 miles of me.
Oh, wow.
I know, it's really nice. And they carry grain. I probably got 10 different kinds of feed I can pick from. It's nice living here in Pigeon World.
So let's talk about for shows, for transporting your birds to and from show. Are there any good hacks or tips that you can give us for that?
I show bigger and taller birds. I show the Pomeranian powders. I show English powders. They don't fit in a standard carrier. You can't cram them in there. So I have had carriers custom made for the birds. I'm not going to go to all the trouble of getting them into show condition and then take them and try to stuff them in a carrier that's made for a Homer-sized pigeon because that's not going to work for them.
Right, yeah.
I have them custom made to be tall, big, long, wide, whatever, I feel that they need. And then if I'm going over, if I have to travel overnight, I rent a town and country minivan. I have them take all the seats out, and then I've got 2 wire transport cages that I had custom built that fit in the back of a town and country minivan. And I put the birds in that, and I use moving pads. I put moving pads underneath to catch everything. And then the birds travel in that. They're very, very happy. And to keep the dust down, I take sheets, I wet the sheets, and I put the damp sheets over the cages. Dust stays on the pigeons where it belongs instead of all over the rental car.
See, I wish I would have known that. I just transported a bunch of pigeons around, and that dander, that dust or whatever, that just got everywhere. If I would have put a wet sheet, that would have probably solved. Yeah, because all over the dash, all over all the doors, it was just a white powder. That's good to know about that wet sheet. I'm going to try that next time.
Yeah, just go to the Goodwill store, Salvation Army. Spend $2 or $3, buy a king size sheet, run it under the faucet or the hose, wring it out, and throw it over them. All the dust will stay put because I did it one year and it took me like an extra day to clean the van enough to even return it because I don't tell them that I'm transporting 40 birds in it. I tell them I'm going antique shopping at flea markets.
Nice. That's another good hack right there. I like that.
Well, yeah, because why else would I not want any seats in it?
Right.
So that's what I always tell them. But then if I would return it all dusty, they'd be like, so the furniture was really filthy, huh? And I'd be like, yeah. Learned real quick, if you just get a wet sheet, problem solved.
And so then after the show, I'm guessing you obviously do quarantine.
60 days minimum.
Oh, wow.
Yep. I have an area at the very, very back of my property where I have 6 2x2 by 4 foot cages set up, and that's where everything that goes to a show goes. And they are the very last to be fed. And then I strip off all my clothes outside, and then I come inside and take a shower because I don't want to risk it. I can't afford to risk it. Every time I go on Facebook or whatever, there's somebody else who's all their birds are dying or they're spinning or they're doing this, that, or the other. And it's like, well, did you quarantine them? Did you quarantine the new birds? Did you do this? Did you do that? Do you vaccinate your birds? Half these people are like, no, I don't vaccinate my birds. Well, then, the fact that all your birds have PMD That's on you, buddy. They make vaccines for this stuff.
That's the risk they took, and they're paying the price.
Yeah. I mean, your standard bottle of vaccine, you get like 50 doses for $50. To me, and I got a buttload of pigeons, to me, it's worth $1 a bird to protect my flock from getting something. I would rather spend $1 a bird than sit there and watch my birds drop dead.
Especially for people who are going to be showing and stuff like that. You're really taking a gamble, and, you're even taking a gamble with other people's birds. Biosecurity, we keep talking about this quarantine, and you never hear about that, whenever you see loft designs online, this is how you build the pigeon loft, but really, you should almost build two, or at least 1.5. I got, empty lofts that I'll use for either quarantine or conditioning or whatever reason. There's a lot of good reasons to have that extra overflow area. If you don't have it, you just have one loft, you don't have that capability to quarantine or to separate birds or to cull, out of your flock. It's really important to have that space.
Well, yeah, and even what I do is in between. My biggest loft is 42 foot, and there's an area about 4 foot in between where I store grain and everything. And in there, I keep a pan, it's a cat litter thing, and I keep bleach water in there. And when I go from the left side to the right side, I walk right through there, and I change that bleach every couple days. So that way, I don't take something from the palm loft into the Dutch powder loft, just in case, because you never know.
Prepping for a show. A lot of people will do all kinds of different things, and obviously it's breed specific mostly. Some people might have to do stuff with the beak, trim some feathers and stuff like that. But any tips, advice you can throw at us for some show prep?
The show prep isn't something that you do like 2 days before the show and then hope that you can fix all the flaws, because it doesn't work that way. Show prep is something you do all year round by providing good husbandry, making sure the birds are clean all the time, making sure you give them good food all the time, making sure you keep them relatively bug-free all the time. It's not just something you go, oh, crap, I got a show in a week. Let me start spraying them and let me start doing this and that. You don't want 2 days before the show to decide to trim their toenails, because if you get into a blood vein, well, then you're going to have a bird with blood stains on it. Or if you cut the beak too short, then it's going to get blood stains on its chest. So it's something you do all year round, or you're at least cognizant of the fact that you're trying to keep your birds in as good a shape as you can all year round, so that when show season comes around, they're pretty much ready to go as is. You don't just let them go to hell in a handbasket and then try to fix it, because you're not going to.
Right. Yeah. What's that phrase? If you're always ready, you don't have to get ready.
Yeah, that's just it. I mean, I scrape and clean my loft every single day, because that way it's like 5 minutes per loft rather than let it go, and then it becomes like hours long once a month. It's a whole lot easier to spend 5 minutes and just go, scrape, and it's over and done with, than to be like, ugh, look at this chore I have to do. That's my opinion. I would much rather spend 5 minutes a day than 3 or 4 hours once a month. But, to each their own. But also most of my birds have got boots or muffs or some type of feathered footing, and I don't want them standing in their crap and getting bumblefoot and getting stained feathers and everything. I figure if I wouldn't want to stand in it, I don't want them standing in it.
I don't know about you guys, but we've started the breeding season up here, because you even said that Tony's Treasures does stuff for some of the breeding, a breeding supplement in some ways. I might have to try some of that out, because I got some older cockbirds that just aren't driving like they used to. That'd be great if that took care of that.
It seems to take care of like internal canker, and a lot of people don't realize canker isn't just like the crap you see in their mouth. Hens can get internal canker, which affects their reproductive organs. And of course, you can't see it because it's inside the bird, but they do get internal canker, which will result in infertile eggs, just a lot of problems. So sometimes if you notice a decrease in fertility, or birds that just look a little droopy, but they're not like really sick, they're just kind of meh, treat them for a day or two, and it usually perks them right up. It does seem to work. I have no idea, like I said, no idea what's in it, no idea how or why it works. It simply works, and it's one of those things, I don't question it. It works, like, good, glad it does. Spent thousands of dollars on crap that didn't work.
What are some other helpful pieces of advice for coming into the breeding season for us?
We breed all year round down here because the weather is conducive to that. We maybe get a week or two where it gets cold, like maybe we'll get a little bit of ice on the water, but I mean, generally not. So you can pretty much breed almost all year round down here. So I try to keep everybody, feed them high protein. What people don't realize is, the chicks have to have the protein so they don't get splay-legged and so that they grow fast. If they don't grow fast, they will get splay-legged in the nest. Then you have to try to tie their legs together or all this other nonsense. And if you just feed them a little bit higher protein, you won't run into that issue. I found that out. I try not to go below 16% protein.
You keep at least 60% during the breeding season then?
I feed it to them all year round because mine breed all year round. They breed when they want to breed, and depending on how the weather is, they set their own clock. So I have it in front of them all the time.
So what do you do for bugs? What do you do to get the bugs off your birds? I do a permethrin dip on mine, and that seems to last pretty long. I just do it like once every 6 months. What do you do to keep the bugs off your birds?
I use Adam's flea and tick spray for dogs. Believe it or not, that stuff is great. You buy it at Walmart. It's cheap. It smells good. Makes your birds smell good. It's all like natural pyrethrins and stuff. And it really and truly works. The bonus that I have seen with that is you spray them down with it. Then if they take and they groom themselves and they ingest it, it will also shift worms.
Oh, nice.
Yep. So generally speaking, if you use that, if your birds do have a light load of worms, you will probably find a tapeworm or two in their droppings because it will shift worms.
So how often do you got to spray the birds with that?
I go through and I look at my birds probably once a month. And if I start to notice, the I call them feather swimmers, the little long, thin black ones. If I start to notice feather swimmers, or I check the rump and the neck, and if I start to see holes, then I grab it and I spray them. The problem is solved. But I try to, once they have molted, I try to keep up on it a little bit more because once I get those nice feathers in, I want those feathers to stay nice and not get holes in them. So once they've bred and molted, then I stay on top of them a little bit better, but I don't want to traumatize them when they're breeding or when they've got babies or whatnot.
Do you put bath pans out more for them during the molting season?
Their water pans I get them at the Dollar Tree. They're designed to be oil change pans. They're like a black rubber. They hold 2 gallons of water. They're black rubber. They're $1.25. You can get literally years out of them. I buy them by that armful whenever I see they have them, and that's what I water them in, and they bathe in it too. It just serves double duty. I don't use like those bullet waterers or anything like that. They have open pans. I put 1 capful of bleach in each 1.5 gallons or 2 gallons of water in each one of those because it keeps the water bacteriostatically clean. It's like, yeah, it might have crap in it, but there's just enough bleach in there to keep anything nasty from growing. So it may not look good, but it's still clean. I'm the net that changes the water every day and washes each bowl out every day. It's never, ever really dirty, but keeping the bleach in that water also keeps their feathers whiter.
Well, that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a kind of an added bonus. I think the last time we were talking, I was trying to think of the name of the product that I use to get the stains off of the birds on their same feathers, and it's called Cowboy Helper is what it's called. And it's for show horses to scrub their butts to get manure stains off of their rear end. But it works fantastic on stained feathers.
Is it like a shampoo then?
Yeah, it has a picture of a horse on it. There's a couple. There's Cowboy Helper. There's Cowboy Magic. Mane and Tail makes a brand of it also. You find it at any tack place or farm type of place. It's a clear shampoo, but the minute you use it, it foams up and it turns blue. And it's that bluing agent that's in there that bleaches the feathers. You want to take the birds, you wash them with that. You rinse them, but not super good. And then you make certain they get about, 4 or 5 hours out in the sun to really bleach those feathers, and then wash them again, and you will have snow white feathers. Absolutely snow white feathers. And I have used that for years. It's got rose hips and a bunch of other stuff in there. And once again, they smell really good after you use it, but it works really, really well.
You must have some of the best smelling pigeons around. I bet your lofts just smell terrific when you go in there.
They do smell pretty good. I've been in some people's lofts and they use like garlic oil and it smells like an Italian restaurant loft. It was like, okay.
Can you talk about some of the design features that you have inside of your loft? You have quite a few different breeds. Are you doing kind of different setups? You know, you got 8 lofts. Are they all built the same, or do you have them built differently for each breed?
They're built differently for the breeds, like the palm lofts and the Dutch lofts, because those birds are so big. Those nest boxes are 18 by 18. The birds don't fit at 12 by 12. They just don't. So those have got bigger, deeper nest holes. Pretty much everybody else has got your standard 12 by 12s because they're pretty much standard sized pigeons, but the bigger birds have bigger nest boxes. Because in that way, there's room for the nest bowl, there's room for mom, room for dad, room for the baby when it comes out. You know, there's room for everybody. That way the babies don't end up on the floor or anything else. Depending on what is going to go in there kind of sets different sizes. One of the best things I always found out was I would never have a dirt floor and I would never have a loft that sets on the floor. So mine are all about 3.5 or 4 feet up off the ground, and all the floors are made out of expanded steel. And then on top of that is 1/4 inch welded wire. Nothing can come up from the bottom and grab my birds. And I mean literally nothing. It is tricky and it is kind of hard to scrape it clean, but I don't have to worry about going out there and finding a bunch of birds with their legs pulled off.
From like a raccoon pulling down on them or something.
Yep, I had that happen one time when I just had the expanded steel floors. I said, never again. Ran right out and bought the good heavy duty 1/4 inch welded wire and put that welded wire over all the expanded steel. And literally, a snake can't even get in. Literally nothing can get in from the bottom. And then all of my lofts they have like an open roof peak that's just wire. But that way, in the summer when it's hot here, because they're so far up off the ground, the loft just naturally, it pulls the cool air up from underneath where it's all nice and shaded, and it pulls it up through the loft and out the roof of the loft. It could be 100 degrees outside, and my lofts probably are not above 82 or 83. That's how I have my biggest loft designed, because it was just like, wow, these birds they're just going to get too hot in there. And I thought, well, let's try doing this. And it seems to have worked. And everyone's just like, well, who thought of that? And I'm like, you know what? I will raise my hand and I say, I came up with that design. Thank you.
Yeah, where you are, you got to build them to be about hurricane proof, really.
Well, I tell you that big loft is heavy enough that my house will blow away before that loft blows away. That thing weighs tons. Well, it's 16 by 12 by 42 foot. It weighs an awful lot. But I do have hurricane straps also that go across the top of it, and then they go down into the ground. And then what I did on the inside of the loft, I have like the plastic chicken wire that just kind of lines the roof so that if, heaven forbid, I lose a roof, the birds are still contained. It keeps them in there because oh my goodness, this was probably 6-7 years ago. We had a hurricane and I literally was in the house and I watched part of the roof come off of my lucerne loft. And I watched my lucernes go flying away and they never came back. And I thought, that's not going to happen again. And went out and bought it's the chicken wire, but not the thin wire. It's actually made out of like a green plastic. It's a little bit thicker. And just put that up on the inside and made it secure. It's a visual barrier and it's also a true barrier. So this way, God forbid, the metal roof comes off again, the birds will stay put.
Definitely built from some experience, it sounds like.
It was like 4 o'clock in the morning and I'm like, what is that noise? And I go and I stand on my back porch with my spotlight and I'm just watching a part of the roof come off and go into the yard.
Oh, no.
I go running out there and I'm trying to catch as many birds as I can and literally stuff them into the loft next door. But I still lost probably a good 30 birds and they never did come back because the lucernes, once they're gone, they're gone. They're not smart enough to come back. But I thought that's not going to happen again. Learned my lesson.
What are some common rookie mistakes you see new breeders bringing birds into the shows?
Oh, biggest one, birds that are loaded with bugs. And I mean like, that kind of a thing. I was judging, like nightmare. I was judging powders and croppers 2 years ago. A younger guy brought in I want to say it was either a horseman or a Norwich. I mean, they're basically the same creature when all is said and done. And from like 4 foot away, I could see the bugs going in and out of the feathers. Yeah, and I mean, all pigeons have bugs. You really cannot eradicate every single bug off of the bird without basically almost killing the bird. You can't. When I'm standing 3 and 4 foot away, and I can literally see swimming in and out of the feathers, it was just like, I called him over and I explained the situation, and I said, that bird is out. I said, if you could please take it, pull it from the show cage, put it in a carrier, and get it out of here, I would appreciate it. And that's probably the biggest thing that I see, or people that insist on showing a sick bird, or a bird that's not feeling in top condition, or a bird that was just at another show last week, or a bird that's been in the carrier for 2 days without water, or whatever, because the bird is not going to go anywhere. It's not going to do anything. It's not going to look right or act right. And if there is something wrong with it, then why would you want to expose everybody else's birds to it? If your bird is not in top condition, looking good, acting right, please don't show it, because it's going to get tossed and you're not going to get that highly coveted dollar ribbon, So yeah, I know. It's like, so just don't risk the bird's health and safety and everybody else's health and safety too.
I mean, both those things go back to what you say. Just keep them at that level all year. Especially with the bugs, depending on what your method is, it takes time for all the bugs to be off, especially like you're saying, if you don't want them to damage the new feathers. So if you're actually on this all the time, yeah, bugs wouldn't be an issue. And the whole bringing a sick bird to a show, it sucks if something comes up and you can't show your birds, and maybe you already paid an entry fee or whatever, but it's never worth taking the chance of getting everybody else's bird sick. Or there are other fanciers there, and you think a judge isn't going to know that your bird is sick? You're not going to fool a judge, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, do you want the reputation of being that person that brings sick birds to shows? And I've run into that before with other people, that they're just like, oh, his birds are always sick, and try not to have your birds bunked next to his. Why would you want that reputation? I don't advertise. I don't have a website. I don't have any of that. People want to buy birds from me. They know from word of mouth or seeing my birds at shows. And if I get a bad reputation that my birds are sick or ill or full of bugs or whatnot, there goes that. So I don't want to be that person. I want to be that person where people go, her birds always look nice. They're clean. They're healthy. They're bred to standard. They look good. There you go. Bob's your uncle. What could you possibly want? People make a lot of problems for themselves by doing that. It's like, yeah, I realize that, you just had a show last weekend, and, your birds didn't get any downtime, but you're going to make your birds sick, then they're not going to do anything. They're going to sit there and sit there like lumps. They're not going to display. If they're powders or croppers, they're not going to blow. No blow, no show. Why bother showing them? My opinion only, but, it makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think that's general. They posted a list of show rules before the Grand National this year, and that was one of them on there. Do not bring sick birds to the show.
It should just be common sense. My bird is sick. I don't want it to infect everybody else. I'm not going to bring it. But there's people that are just like, I'll be damned. I paid my $5 and that bird is going.
Yep.
And if it lays there and dies in the show hole, well, then so be it. And it's like, well, I'm not one of your children. I mean,
yeah, I know one breeder that was going to bring, quite a few pretty nice birds, and he had some stuff going on in his other loft, not necessarily with the ones he was going to show, but he still just held them. Yeah, that's just being smart, being safe, and it's being courteous to your other fanciers.
Oh, I know who you're talking about, and we did a lot of discussing, and yeah, it's being courteous, and it's common sense, because he sells a lot of birds also, depends on some of that, for money. And he doesn't want to get the reputation of being that person that will sell you a sick bird, and then your stuff comes down with it. Because once you get that reputation, you can never get your good reputation back. Protect your reputation. It's not worth it to show a sick bird. But literally, the biggest thing that I see is birds that have bugs. And I mean just like bugs. Like you pick them up and you go to look them over, and then you look down and your shirt is crawling with bugs. And it's like, oh, I know. It's just like, oh, I'm so skeeved out right now. I don't know what to do. You know?
Yeah, no
Because
thanks.
I've got feather mites all over my clothing.
Good animal husbandry, what it takes throughout the year.
Yeah, like I said, it's just a no-brainer. If you make it a habit of doing it all the time, then it just becomes second nature. Just work out a system and just do it. I would think that if you go to that much effort to have birds that you show, you would want them to do well, and you would want to keep them in tip-top condition. And you're not going to get them that way by giving them by giving them a lick and a promise 2 days before you pack up and go to a show. It's not going to work that way.
Bonnie, I want to thank you for coming on. And if anybody is wanting to look Bonnie up, Bonnie's pretty active on Facebook. You can look her up, and she's always been great pigeon fancier, helping other people out, giving advice and stuff like that. So you can track her down on Facebook. Bonnie, thanks for coming on and sharing all this with us today.
You're more than welcome. Like I said, and anytime anybody has a question, you can find me on Facebook. I'm always on there trolling around looking at something, and I answer the questions as best I can. I welcome trying to help people getting started.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the All About Pigeons podcast. Please help the pigeon hobby by telling your fellow club members or other pigeon friends about the podcast, and make sure to leave a good review or at least a 5-star for the podcast wherever you listen. If you have a topic or a person you want to hear more about on the podcast, or if you yourself would like to be a guest, just send an email to allaboutpigeonspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.